Creativity has always been really important to me. From playing the guitar, to skateboarding, to painting, to doing sketches of places I go. It's always been sort of the centre of my life. But to sort of understand this, I need to take you back. This was me. I was youngest of 4 siblings, and growing up, we all had different hobbies, and we'd all sort of combine, and we'd all have different ways of doing them. Whether that was parkour, music, anything really, and there was a lot.
Here's me doing some parkour. There I go. And there's my oldest brother, who is quite clearly better than me. But anyway,
in my most formative years, I spent a lot of time with my mum. She's pretty wacky, creative, and eccentric. So this sort of gave me this creative attitude that I sort of picked up and ran with in life. Somewhere sort of along the way, I sort of lost this childish creativity, and it was probably around the time I went to secondary school and I was about 11. And I think that's kind of normal, and I was a bit shy about that stuff. And I think at that age, you're sort of, everyone's trying to fit in, and it's important to fit in because you're learning the rules and you're learning how to, communicate, those sorts of things. So if you're encroaching on that border, it's only natural that you get teased sort of back into it, and that we want to, that as a society, we've sort of evolved to try and create those sort of social norms, social functions and stuff that we learn at a young age. But when you sort of get to, 18, 16, around that age, you start to be expected to sort of turn that inward creativity that you've sort of become shy about from being a kid and project it back outwards because you're becoming an adult and you've got way more responsibility. And that sort of spreads into early adulthood where I sort of am now, and you're sort of expected even more so to put yourself out there and start earning money, having responsibility on those things. And when you do that, you're in quite a vulnerable space. You can lack a lot of confidence because you're putting yourself out there and you're opening yourself up to a lot of critique, that sort of thing. And people can be really mean when you do that. But I also think our egos get a little bit out of check because we're in such a vulnerable state, and we feel like anyone who gives us advice or tells us maybe we can do something differently, we feel like it's probably an attack, and I'm certainly guilty of that. And it probably isn't the case, maybe it is, I don't know. But I think it's more likely that older people are just trying to give you advice and stop you making mistakes maybe they make when they're young. I mean, if I asked my older family members what they regret about youth, I bet they'd have loads of wisdom to pass down. And in fact, I'm going to go ask my brother right now. Pause for a second. This is my older brother, Ozzy, and I think I've chosen the perfect screenshot to introduce him on. He's 9 years older than me, and he opens new businesses for a living, and he's pretty successful in everything he does. And if you couldn't tell, he's someone I look up to quite a lot. Anyway, back to the video.
So, what do you regret most about your youth?
I don't know if regret's the right word per se, because I don't think it's helpful to look backwards and wish things were different. It's really easy to say, oh, I wish I had a better education, or my schooling was better. I think it's better to see it as like what would have supplemented my sort of childhood, or what piece of information or knowledge would have been most valuable to me at the time. And I think in truth it's actually understanding how powerful and how valuable your youth really is, and that's partly because things compound over time. So what I mean by that is that if you implement good money practices when you're young, obviously you've got a lot more years for the benefits of those to accrue. And they don't just accrue as linear things, they accrue on top of what has accrued. Sort of when you're young, you have more time and less responsibility than you'll ever have again in the rest of your life. And it's a great tragedy that most of us don't really discover what we want to do until we get to an age when we're already so far down the path of doing something that we don't want to. So I think when you think about adults, and it's not to say that I'm some sort of old man, although you might disagree. I'm a father-to-be, I'm sort of making progress in life. A lot of the time, when I look back, I sort of feel I wish I knew myself better.
Do you think, as well, when you give advice to people younger than you, like me, do you think a lot of the time they take it as sort of an insult rather than you're trying to actually just help them?
Yeah, but there's two sides to that, because in some ways, young people are justified, because people that are older do always think that they know better. That's true. And sometimes older people can use advice as a way of sort of demonstrating or practicing that superiority. But on the other hand, advice is also memory. It's when somebody asks you for advice as their senior or their elder, you're really looking into your past and thinking about how things were for you. And I think a lot of the conflict comes from the fact that when young people don't appreciate that sometimes that advice is difficult for us to give because it brings up the mistakes that we've made, is where the conflict can sort of arise. So really in those situations, you have to judge whether the advice comes from a good place. Now, if it comes from a close family member that you can trust, then obviously you do know it comes from a good place. If it comes from somebody, on the street that isn't invested in your well-being at all, and perhaps isn't the type of person that you want to be, then it's better to ignore that. But
yeah, well, thank you, bro.
Yeah, no worries.
Anyway, linking this back to creativity, I think there's a lot of regrets about the past and anxieties about the future, understandably. And I think the best antidote to this is creativity and having fun. And there's a mixed martial artist, his name's George St Piere, and he's a champion in everything, he's really great. And there's this interview of him, and he's talking about this, and he sums it up in a way I could never. So I'll just show you the clip.
Life or death.
You cannot improve like this. You need to be playful. Of course, when you're in training camp and your fight is coming up, you need to somehow trying to recreate that environment of discomfort, that stress. But when you're outside of that preparation zone, you need to be playful, and that's when you improve, when it's playful, when it's like a game, because you will be more prone to trying new things, and by trying new things you'll adapt. You'll be like, oh, this one works, this one doesn't work.
To me, this is just like the best advice. I mean, of course it's about fighting, but I think it can go sort of anywhere with it. I mean, everyone wants to be the best at what they do, and they want to train the hardest, and they want to work really hard. I want to be the best, you want to be the best. Everyone has that desire to be really good at something. But I think sometimes our ego is so obsessed with this idea of perfection that we either don't try, or we try and give up because we're so afraid of failing, right? It's, for me, putting myself out there can be quite difficult. There's this whole culture of cringe with people my age. The internet's a massive part of that. Everyone can see your whole life and comment on it, and they don't have to say it to you, and it can be quite difficult to turn with. But for me, when I use creativity, I don't care about that. I'm treating it like a game. It doesn't matter. It takes away all that pressure. It's like a football player, and they're training for penalties, and they train like it's the World Cup final and it's the last penalty. They put themselves in that place. They imagine what it's like to kick the ball, the crowd cheering. But when it actually comes to taking that shot in the game and that penalty with all the crowd screaming to win it all, they don't care. They've done it so many times in training. They've emulated that sort of environment. I'm bringing this back to myself. It's not that I don't really care about it. It's that the creativity is so fun that I will overlook it. It takes away the edge. And whether it's playing the guitar, drumming, skateboarding, I don't need to be good at them. I just do, and I pick up these skills. And I'm able then to try new things and feel comfortable to try new things and take away things rather than trying to be so serious and perfect. There's a room for that. I have to set goals when I do things. If I'm video editing, it seems tedious, the scripting, the editing, having to, write things down, all the really tedious bits of it. But when it actually comes down to it, if I employ the creativity into it, the music, the transitions, the things I really enjoy, this motivates me because I find fun in it and I'm enjoying it and I don't care about the other stuff. I'm willing to overlook them. And it's like, of course there's a balance, I have to set those goals, I want to make this amount of videos, I need to get this across. But in order to achieve these goals, I'm employing creativity as the sort of fuel. And by being playful, it's sort of helping me employ that creativity. Whereas if I'm taking it too literally and being so rigid with things and being obsessed with perfection, I'm never going to try things and there's no room for creativity. This next bit of the video is going to sound a bit random and a bit out of the blue, but I promise I'll link it back to creativity. I'm going to show you something called the Sunday Clean. And I know that sounds really, really tedious, but it's not. And I'll explain to you why, and let me show you. Okay, to start, you're going to want to do one thing. Get your favourite song on. Then, you're going to get the Hoover and start hoovering. And when I mean tidying, I don't mean the usual stuff you do, like every day, making your bed, that sort of stuff, picking clothes off the floor. I mean the sort of admin stuff you don't do. So next, I want you to water your plants, if you have any. If you don't, get some. And I also want you to cut back any dead leaves, all of that sort of stuff, just all the admin stuff you don't do. Next, wipe down the sides, all of that sort of stuff, and empty your bins. You're done. It's all it takes. It takes 30 minutes tops. It's not a long process. It's quick. It's one of those things we neglect, and I think it's really important. So give it a try. This might be the part you're wondering, what does that have to do with creativity? And I'll explain that now. You often hear the phrase, your room's a reflection of your mind. And I think that's really true. And I think that not only goes for the mess in it, but also what's in your room. So for me, there's loads of plants, paintings, books, music, and they're all a reflection of my subconscious. They're all a reflection of things, and it all comes back to creativity, really. And I think it rings true that your subconscious is mysterious. You can't interact with it like you can other things like your conscious mind. So when you bring it into the conscious sphere, when you look at what's materialized in your room, you can start to understand the themes in your subconscious and what that might output into your life. And I think that's a really powerful exercise. And you can relate that to other parts of your work. And whether you're wanting to be a financial advisor, a therapist, a sportsman, you can start to realize, okay, what's my subconscious influence on what I'm doing and what I'm achieving? What does my subconscious input into things? And I think when you understand that, and I think if you don't understand that and you don't do these exercises and you're not in touch with that, you can sometimes find yourself making decisions you don't understand, and that can be quite distressing. And I think it's really powerful to sit there and analyze your subconscious and start to bring it into the conscious realm and start to understanding its influence and figuring out where that fits in your life. And then you can use it to your benefit, and you can understand its weaknesses, its strengths, and you can start inputting them into your things you're doing. And I think that's really powerful. The final thing I want to talk about in this video is something that's really dear to me, and it's the Lord of the Rings books. And you've obviously got the Hobbit, you've got the three main Lord of the Rings books, and you've got the Silmarillion, and obviously there's much more. And sort of as a testament to J.R Tolkien, the writer's creativity when writing this, you can see here this book of all this amazing creative artwork he did for it, and how beautiful they were. And he was someone that was really interested in a lot of things. You know, he was interested in linguistics, and he was interested in politics, philosophy, and all of those things. And he actually wove a story in this beautiful tapestry within these books where he combined creativity and really serious themes like masculinity, good versus evil, industry, into this amazing fantasy story. And I think it's a real testament to how things that don't seem creative, like really serious real world ideas and politics and things like that, are ripe for creativity and are ripe for that sort of that part of life. But I think I just want to show that creativity can be anywhere, and that there's a real dance between really intense, serious themes and things in life and creativity and stories we tell and those sorts of things, and that they actually do link. And I think if I was going to summarize the three main points I'm trying to make in this video, I'd summarize them sort of as such. Number one would be that creativity is really great fuel, and that it motivates you and that it keeps you disciplined. And I think the second would be that it really helps you align to your subconscious and sort of find a balance between your subconscious and what it's putting into your work. And I think thirdly, I'd sort of say that creativity can be found absolutely anywhere. And that can be in writing, in construction work, in just absolutely anything. You can find out-the-box thinking, creativity, fun, all of those things. And that's really important to me. And I hope that's important to you too. If you've enjoyed the video and you're interested in those sorts of topics, check out our Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff below, and subscribe to the channel. We'll do about a video every week, and we'll talk about more topics like this and things I'm interested in and things that I think will help you, especially if you're a student and that sort of age. So subscribe, check out the content next week, and thank you for watching.